Dr. Harley Sawyer was quite literally the brain of the Bigger Bodies initiative for Playtime Co. Without him, it would have never worked. He was so important that they decided to keep him there forever. This is when we meet him in Chapter 4. While his presence left much to be desired, there is still a lot to be said about his character. So let's take a closer look at the Doctor. I feel it's only right to explain just how Harley became this infamous all-seeing eye before we jump into the chapter. Lucky for us, there are a few VHS tapes to help us out. The first one is a conversation between Leith, Eddie, and Stella. They all agree Harley Sawyer has become a problem for the company, and he needs to be dealt with. But they can't kill him, he is too valuable. So Leith Pierre decides to do something that would show his true colors. They took Harley and uploaded his consciousness to Playtime Co.'s database using his brain and organs. Which brings us to the second tape when Harley wakes up. At first he is confused, but quickly realizes the situation he's in, calling them backstabbers. Harley has become a subject to his own procedure. He was reduced to organs, stored and kept alive within vital system centers scattered around the factory. He yells at Dr. White for doing this to him, when suddenly Leith Pierre chimes in and tells Harley that he gave the order for this to happen. Leith then explains what's going to happen next. From then on, Harley would be used to give answers to the lab scientists and help them whenever it's needed. That's it. He would be an open book for them whenever they want it. Leith continues by telling Harley to fight or give in. It doesn't really matter because either way, they own the very infrastructure he is wired to. Meaning Dr. Harley Sawyer will now be a servant to Playtime Co. for the rest of his life. He is from there on out a digital entity. When we, the player, first learn about Harley, he presents himself over the TV inside a prison cell. He mentions feeling something squirming its way beneath his skin, an intrusive foreign little germ after all this time. As we know, the first few layers of the factory were just scratching the surface of the entire facility, meaning we were just scratching the surface of Harley himself. The deeper we go, the deeper we enter inside the mind of Harley Sawyer. This is his turf, there are no places to hide. So he sends us into the prison to see how we fare. A little game, as he said himself. As we navigate through the dark remnants of the prison cells, Harley points out how lost and disoriented we look. Heavy breathing is indicative of fear, so Harley decides to test this response to fear by sending out a horde of mini nightmare critters. This tells us a few different things. First, Harley has full control over the nightmare critters. At a moment's notice, they will obey his every command. But this also tells us Harley will be watching our every move, as he has been watching us since Chapter 1. Now, when we enter one of the containment zone rooms, Harley mentions he never thought he would see another like us, a human, certainly not an employee, which is interesting because he doesn't say what type of employee we actually are, as this still remains a mystery. But he says something makes us different, he's not sure what. However, we were able to take out the other experiments, so we must be special. Harley himself decides to try something different and brings out Yarnaby. As we know, Yarnaby acts as Harley's guard dog. Since we are getting closer, he sends out Yarnaby to help protect him. Harley also mentions he will be taking notes. I don't think this was just a little joke. I think he will actually be taking notes on how Yarnaby performs, taking notes on how effective Yarnaby really is. That being said, I believe Harley has been actively studying how each experiment performed when attacking us. After all, they are his creations. This is something a scientist would do. While inside Safe Haven, Doey gives us a little rundown of Harley, as well as a very important detail. He tells us Harley was the scientist in charge of creating them, which of course we already knew. But then Doey confirms Harley is working for the prototype. That being said, there is a VHS tape with a conversation between Harley and the prototype.
Your suggestions?
To produce the results, Doctor. Have I made an error in allowing your survival? Of course not. We just need more time to perfect that. Time is precisely what we do not have. Then I suggest you find some more. That will give me labs access. At least with the two of us.
That is out of the question.
You listen. The situation necessitates it be done. I'm just giving you the facts. And the fact is, we need more time, or this isn't going to work. I can only be reactive up here. Then of what use are you? You know I'm still your best shot at cracking that secret. If I weren't, you would have already killed me. A sound observation. Yes, you have made yourself useful. Provide me more options. I will try again. Of course.
But
If you are stalling, or worse, remember,
your usefulness.
is the only reason you were not stripped for meat and spare parts.
This tape reveals that the prototype is only keeping Harley around, rather alive, because he needs him for something. He also mentions Harley is not allowed in the labs. Why? Because the labs are where the still alive orphans are located. And like I've said in all of my other chapter 4 videos, the prototype is not the bad guy. He is not trying to hurt the orphans. The prototype is keeping them away from Harley to protect them. That being said, why is the prototype keeping Harley alive? What is this secret they are trying to crack? Well, it's immortality. The prototype is using Harley to give the orphans immortality without turning them into bigger bodies. At least that's what makes the most sense to me, as I've explained this in other videos. After our final encounter with Yarnaby, Harley speaks to us again, seeing us just as he expected. Meaning Harley expected us to get past Yarnaby. He expected us to kill him. It makes you wonder if it's been Harley's plan all along to get rid of Yarnaby, considering he abandoned him before the Hour of Joy. Either way, Harley mentions we are every bit of what the prototype fears. We are strong, as no experiment has been able to stop us. But Harley can't remember seeing our face before, and wonders why we came back. Was there someone we loved here? Someone we lost? Or was it the pain of not knowing what happened? It's always been a theory that the player had something to do with the Bigger Bodies initiative. After all, in Chapter 3, it's heavily implied that we returned because of guilt. We are guilty for being a part of the experiments. So now we have returned to help what's left and hope to clear our conscience. But Harley says he doesn't remember seeing us. You would think he would remember every employee that was a part of this initiative. So I'm not entirely sure why he doesn't, but it's an interesting detail to point out. Now, in order to stop Harley, we are tasked with destroying the organs that are keeping him alive. The first is inside the morgue. Here, in an attempt to stop us, Harley pleads to us that Poppy is the bad person, not him. He stressed how she sold us her story, then reveals she knew about the Hour of Joy. She knew it was going to happen. Harley continues how Poppy has just been stringing us along, betrayed us, and has only told us what we needed to know to do exactly what she asks. All she wants is violence. Once the experiments were free, instead of leaving, they created hell. But like I said before, this is Harley trying to convince us that Poppy is the villain. Obviously, this doesn't stop us, so we destroy his lungs. The Poppy slander doesn't stop there. Later on, he continues by suggesting she doesn't actually care about us. She would sacrifice us in an instant if she believed it meant getting what she wanted. The only difference between her and Harley is what he fights for gains humanity something. This line from Harley is the most important. You see, Harley knows that Poppy's plan to stop the prototype is going to kill the remaining experiments. In other words, kill his creations. Harley doesn't want his work to be for nothing. If Poppy destroys everything, the Bigger Bodies initiative will be gone. This is what he meant by saying he fights for gaining humanity something. Harley thinks the Bigger Bodies initiative will save humanity by giving humans immortality, which relates back to why the prototype is keeping him alive. So this is why Harley has been trying to convince us that Poppy is the real villain. He doesn't want her to destroy everything he built, which also explains the Poppy propaganda poster. This was Harley trying to convince the other toys that Poppy will lead them to their death, which he's not entirely wrong. Next, we get a little more information about the nightmare critters and Harley. We fall into an area filled with cages and a shock treatment zone. Inside said cages are the nightmare critters. It seems this is where they have been locked away. This room also explains the experiments would go through shock treatment. Another example of Playtime Co., rather Harley's, sinister acts. As we fall down, Harley says, "You think poor Yarnaby was my only pet," as a mini-ish Bubba Chops begins to chase us. After painstakingly surviving the attack, we enter a room with another nightmare critter trapped inside the same machine Harley's organs are in. He asks if we believe we are taking the moral high road with everything we're doing. He explains how survival necessitates choices, difficult choices. So Harley gives us a choice. If we want to leave, it will come at a cost. We either kill the innocent nightmare critter and leave, or we stay and die. A choice of morals, but of course, we kill the critter. Besides being filler for the chapter, this was a test from Harley, as he has been trying to convince us that Poppy is the real enemy. If we choose to finish her plan, we take out the prototype, but at the cost of innocent lives. So with this test, we have a similar situation. We can leave, but at the cost of an innocent life. Harley is trying to show us that we are no better than Poppy and her plan. After destroying the second organ, we head to where the doctor's brain resides. The last piece to the puzzle. It's hooked up to a different machine than the others. This is because it's his brain, the most important organ. However, he takes control of an android and throws us down underneath. This room is filled with countless other robots that Harley is able to control. These robots allow him to interact with the real world. I have to also point out that there is no explanation for how they were made. Since Harley was a digital entity, it would be impossible to physically build one on his own, so we can only assume the prototype made the first one, which allowed Harley to take physical form and build more. This would explain how and why there are a ton of them. Now, with each computer powered, we get closer and closer to overloading his brain. Once all of them are on, we head back upstairs to do just that. We overload Harley's brain and destroy it. Harley's last words are, "You saved no one." This was his last attempt to try and convince us that Poppy's plan will get everyone killed.